You want to turn down the TV a little bit there?
Nothing. Do you want to join this way?
That's it. Got the. Nothing.
Counties actually have a lot of authority over those now. Not completely, the UCO or the power siting board uh, has authority over that as well. But we're talking about the really large ones. Okay, I mean hundreds of acres sometimes. Um, so those are out of our control for the most part. Townships don't have much. What if people are concerned about those, because those are the ones that are going to wallpaper landscape faster than anything else. I keep urging anyone who is concerned about those, got to go to the county level. You got to get in touch with your county commissioners. You got to make your voice known. You got to get organized, just like this community did for the landfill and water district up on EB Road and all that. So there's only so much that you can do at this level. So, and we're trying to address solar farms under 50 megawatts, and then just clarify what the other districts, the residential, the business, industrial, agricultural, what those look like. It's like a shed in your backyard, you know, a barn or something like that. In a residential, it's treated as an accessory use, right? And So it's like a solar panel you have back there. Many people have solar panels already, so nothing unusual. It's right in with that same category with, within a few other, little tweaks to the regulations. So just as a note of explanation there. Any questions at all? You mind coming to the podium, please? State your name and address.
This might have been addressed already. Ashley Asher, 620 Little Twin. How do we go about not changing the zoning agricultural? And like I said, it might have already been addressed, because from my understanding, you have to change agricultural land to something else before you can put the 50-watt on there.
That's essentially what we're talking about right now. We're trying to define that.
Yeah,
We're trying to clarify that. Basically, that's what this is the clarification for. It's saying, as, and maybe I didn't explain it clearly, because I'm coming to this from having worked on it for months, and you haven't, of course, been to those meetings, but was to say it's only going to be allowed in the general industrial district.
right. And I understand that. I understand that you were saying like certain land, and that's why I was wondering how you stop, because right now I think the land that they want to put it on is agricultural. So she would have to change it if that's what I'm understanding.
That's correct. If all this gets settled, that's right.
Right, and so then that's how I was wondering how we,
Yeah.
That
It
has
goes
to
to a
become-
hearing.
That has to come before this board.
It's a zoning here.
okay. So you guys are just getting the regular, like, that's what I was wondering, how you stop that part, because like, if we stop her from doing that, then that kind of stops the whole. These in place. Those have to be in place first.
That's a whole nother. It's to change the zoning for any parcel of land that has to come before this board.
Right, but you're trying to do the layout right now. The new rules and regulations.
It's
For
not been
the
addressed.
townships are only allowed to have any stay in anything 50 megawatt. That's what happened in April. The township, we didn't have anything to say about it before then. And then they finally, in April, said, okay, you guys can regulate 50 megawatts and under. And you can write your own language for that. So that's what we've been working on, is to try to get that language. And that's where we say it can only go into industrial. That's kind of what we come up with.
And then once that is approved, then we're on the other issue of changing the.
If that ever comes, if anybody ever, approaches the zoning board about that.
And that also is a public hearing. So I mean, it's not just like it happens and we do something about it. It's always a public hearing.
And from what I understand, it's quite a process.
It is quite, it is.
The other thing is that the trustees and have been advised by both the county prosecutor's office, which is our legal support, our legal resources, and the legal resources at the Ohio Township Association, that an outright ban on solar farms is not permissible. In other words, it wouldn't hold up in court very long. So that's why we have to kind of strike a balance between all this. Create some hurdles, just so somebody can't just walk in for free, but.
That was my biggest concern, but I haven't been for the other one, so. Thank you.
Good question, thank you. Mr. Gilbert.
Hi, Chad Gilbert, 5415 Diamond Mill. My question is, we can do what we want with small solar. But if you look at what they've done in other parts of the state, you get some large solar farms south of Wilmington, over around Circleville. What they've done is they've secured this landowner, this landowner, and kind of filled in squares on the bingo board is what they're doing.
Yeah.
And pretty soon it gets large enough that it is larger than 50 megawatts. So it's like they're picking their pieces of the pie until they get enough. Because if you look at what these large, 3,000 acres, 1,500 acres, it's not one landowner, it's not five landowners, it's 100 landowners. So what can we do to stop that just them assembling parts until they get enough parts to make this where we can't control it. Is there any defense in that, from that?
Part of that has to do with the fact that we are only allowing this in industrial zoned areas that are already zoned industrial. And there's not that much in the township that's zoned industrial.
If they get enough landowners to sign an agreement
It doesn't matter.
and not pursue it.
It doesn't matter. They'd
Okay.
have to come before the board and that land would have to be rezoned industrial.
Even if, let's say you have three farmers, they're all next to each other, small plots, all three of those farmers would have to come here and get their agricultural zoned land, zoned industrial before any of them could have solar on.
That's correct.
But I'm saying that can the solar companies secure enough land, say they secure 1,000 acres in one spot, and then everybody present it all at once. Now they don't have to present it to you. They're over the 50 megawatts. It goes to the power siting board and we're stuck. That's what they've done in other areas. It's easier in other areas because you have 300-400 acre farms. You put a couple of those together in a couple 20-acre tracts and 50-acre tracts, things like that. Pretty soon, you've got 75 megawatts or whatever size they are. Here, it'll be more difficult, but you put enough 30, 40, 50 acre parcels together. Basically, I kind of liken it to securing mineral rights. Selling the mineral rights 100 years ago in Kentucky meant nothing on your little patch of ground. When all your neighbors did it 100 years later, they come in and off a mountain, take all the coal. You can't do a thing about
You're talking an aspect of the companies going to purchasing these small farms,
it.
not.
No, not purchasing it. This is them getting you to sign the paper is just like you signing away your mineral rights. They may not act on this for 20 years until they get enough people near you to get it big enough that we can't do anything about it. They get it big enough that it goes before the power siting board. The state wants the money. The state wants the notoriety of being friendly to solar, and they pass them. They pass them.
I think, it was more than you went to the, meeting in Columbus about that. And from what you said, Marlon, too, I think it sounds like at least I was under the impression that it's just not something we have control over at this point. And I think maybe that's your point too. I mean, as far as
We have
we
talked
understand,
about
the
that.
zoning is said 50 megawatt and under, and that's all we can touch. And I understand what you're saying, that they can be gotten around by,
Pooling, basically. Because right now we're talking about two places on Manning Road with 1, 2, 3 properties between them.
but
You
the
get
thing is,
this, hey, this person signed up, this person signed up. I might as well sign up. Well, I might as well sign up. Me too, me too. Next thing you know, you have 500 acres.
I think we still do, if that's still an incremental thing that we can control. So say, again, remember, you're saying, at least I'm understanding this way, you've got a patchwork of farms out there that's doing this, but if that line still has to come, in spite of what, I know what you're saying, people behind the scenes could be doing that. But if each one of those properties, because they're not selling it to them, they are so-called leasing or mineral right, whatever you call that, same like mineral rights. So it still has to come, each of those individual people would have to come and get approval for that to happen. So I think that would some kind of barrier to the companies that are trying to go in and do that quilt work, because they still have to go through, each one of those people would still have to go through that. If it on their property, if their property was under 50 megawatts, then they would still have to get that approval to do it. So unless someone could come in here and get a bunch of excess of 50 megawatt farms to do that, if that would happen, I don't know, but it's still based on, like you're saying, on having a patchwork. They don't want to have a patchwork. They want to have, like you're saying, they want to have one.
They want it contiguous, but in the ones that I've looked at, you have your couple 100-acre landowners tied in there with somebody, a house and 5 acres. And the house and 5 acres has put the 2 acres way in the back in it. Instead of them going around it, they kind of come through it. They're all contiguous, but they're made up of many landowners. And if they can just wait till they get enough together and then let the company go to the power siting board, that would be my concern.
Yeah.
That they can do it as a lump sum, doesn't have to come before the township, because as a whole, not any of these parcels are going to generate 50, but as a whole, they are.
Yeah. But they would still, like you said, they had to be contiguous, but it makes sense for the, part of the issues in this would be whether it's worthwhile for those companies to do that. And if they have enough holdouts or enough smaller ones that it can't be converted, if you want to say it that way, then it wouldn't be beneficial to their plan to put the whole. I mean, I know that's no guarantee. I understand that's what you're saying. There's no guarantee from that, but I think that would be what we're doing here is that attempt to make that not possible to be profitable to do.
Okay.
If you still have, if there's each of those individual owners have, if they have under 50, which I think, again, we had some question about how many acres would there be for, I don't know if we've ever seen an equation of how many acres would sustain, because I think it depends on how it's built and everything else. But
One of my landlords is putting one in and it's around 300 acres and it's over 50.
oh, really?
Right around.
So that's already being done. You're saying that's already being done.
It's in the process. It has no excavation or anything's happened, but it's in the process. So it'd be something to look at. I think I was looking at the Chipmunk Solar Project. And then you could actually look at the contract online and it's obviously hundreds of pages because it involves dozens of landowners. I think that's one of them. So that's all I had, just.
We're
Keep your eyes.
working with what they're allowing us to work with.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, they've given us,
right.
they've finally given us something to work with. And that's what we're trying to do is work with that. I understand totally what you're saying, and it's very possible, that you get big enough, then it's out
Out of your hands.
It's out of our hands.
Right.
I get that, but it's not something I don't know what else we can do other than what we're doing.
We did put verbiage in here though about they can't connect to another. About what he's saying for the larger ones, but I thought we did put that in earlier. About not being able to connect and have it.
Well,
being
it has to be,
outsourced.
it has to be used.
Are you talking about the one on Trotwood?
Yeah, that's all one owner.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Thanks.
Any verbiage in that, no two parcels can be connected that are in small or farms.
It's
I thought we did.
and that's, because we started out with just the, any solar facility, but it says it, I know the general statement about it's got to be used, owned and not leased by the landowner where the system will reside. So that's
Mhm.
talking about, any solar energy system. That's not talking about solar farms.
I think we talked about that, but I don't know if we actually put that in there. I don't remember reading that today. About not being able to add one to another.
It's an important enough point. We don't seem to have answers.
Yeah.
Not that that's bad, but we're trying to find answers. So I think what I will do is I was hoping we might be able to prove this tonight, but I think I'm going to talk with the Ohio Township Association.
Find out what we can do about a contiguous.
See if they have any answers for that.
You know they're gonna sneak in the back door, George.
I think our calculations were right on that, about 300 acres to do a 50 megawatt.
Yeah, that's what we were, under the assumption that.
Somebody disputed that when they agreed.
Yeah. Well, a question then, because, and Chad, I guess this is sort of directed to you, but only because I know that you know this probably better than anybody, or, one reason I put this general standard in Article 38, because like I said, I didn't put it in reference to the solar farm. I'm just wondering how because this is under residential agricultural business and office districts. And that was that additional statement, the removal of prime agricultural soil shall be limited to 2 acres in total for the purpose of installing any building components of a facility not intended for an agricultural purpose. What struck me about this whole thing is what we've tried to do. Well, we try to be forward looking and think about what technologies or what land uses may come into into effect for the township instead of waiting till after it happens is probably what we're doing with this here. That's why I didn't tie this directly to that section on solar farms or on this residential or commercial regular solar energy systems. And that being, if this, we've all agreed this, and this is even in the planning commission, this area is it's an agricultural area.
Mhm.
So just to say in general, forget whether it's a solar farm, that under general standards, you can't take more than remove of 2 acres of agricultural soil.
Mhm.
I would certainly think that's going to affect whatever. And like I said, it's not just solar farms, anything that's going to be done in this district. We don't want to change the whole nature of this being an agricultural district.
Talking about when Pete was talking about the soils too, much of it could be, that would cover what he was saying.
Yeah. So I don't know, do
Combined.
you think that, I mean, in your estimation?
I think that's key
Mhm.
because you're not, you specifically line something for solar. You can't have solar in this township. You're gonna get sued.
Mhm.
Because you're saying one industry, you're cutting out lots of things there.
Right.
But you say 2 acres, you know that coming in, it's been on the books for quite a few years, right, Shauna? I just experienced it with that house split, I had to sell 2 acres minimum. And I think that's a key thing because it's a broad brushstrokes type thing. And it's not singling out one industry.
Right.
I think it's important and I think it's very good that it's in there.
And that's,
It has been in there for a while.
and that's what I'm saying. It's not just that, we're certainly not against solar installations. We're against this solar farm that because of what it's doing to the agricultural
Yes.
land. And so that's why this, I think, applies to any kind of use in that district. Is if you're taking away it's what you educated us on. I didn't realize that once that's topsoil and all that is taken off, you can't recover that. So it doesn't make it more imperative that we do something to protect that asset. If you look at it, it's a very valuable asset we have. We value that agricultural district, which we're part of.
In their wattage calculations. So when they're specifying that just the max of what they believe it can output that amount of acres? Or are we actually going to hold them to how much they're actually producing?
55 megawatt.
Right, because they can say it's 55 megawatt because it could produce it, but maybe in this area of the region, the sunlight, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So is there anything you can put in there that says they have, if they got that big, they have to actually prove they're putting that much out?
There's a difficulty with that in that how does the township prove that, right? I mean, who's going to enforce that?
We don't have to.
He's saying they
We don't have to prove it. They have. They'll know how much they're pulling. It'll be red if somebody's buying.
On a sunshiny day or a cloudy day or,
I'm not going to talk about the
We're-
average. What is, how is that defined? What I'm saying, and is there anything in there that we base them tighten that up?
Could you state your name and your address?
Steve Christian, 6262 Little.
None of us are experts
I'm not.
on many of the solar stuff. I mean, this dropped them. Maybe we're scratching and fetching to kind of figure it out. And we learn more all the time, but there's only, we have to move forward with what we've got so we can get it on the books. So will we have everything we need to cover in here? Probably not.
That's why we have zoning appeals, that they have to go before them so they can.
And to your point earlier, Kurt, I think it's essential that we want to add, but there's no reason we can't add those later versus get this on the books now versus pushing to another meeting. I think it's essential that we get this.
So we do have a moratorium in place that the trustees passed, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, right? Shauna? So that takes us into June. Yeah, so you may not have been aware that we had an initial one. We had an initial one that would have expired by now. You're right. In fact, maybe today.
End of the year. It was the
Yeah,
end of the year. Yeah.
Yeah, December 29th, actually.
We were close.
Yeah, we were very close, but they extended it. So now it's into June. So we do have time to work. Would have been nice to get this done, but I think we can raise some questions. In my way of looking at it, this is kind of a tactical level of trying to work things out. There's some macroeconomic things going on in the, way above what we do here. And, you've got a state that has power, for the last 100 some years, maybe 120 or 30, got most of their power from coal. Well, coal's being phased out, whether anybody likes it or not. It's a dirty energy. It's been replaced somewhat by fracking that's occurred in the eastern part of the state and Pennsylvania and West Virginia, which is natural gas, producing natural gas. So we've been able to bring on board power plants that run on natural gas, which is a cleaner fossil fuel. The problem is, as we scale down our largest power producing, there's this gap. And oh, by the way, they're bringing on electric vehicles at the same time. So not only can we not keep up with the current demand, we can't keep up. I mean, there's no chance of us going forward. So that's why the states opened this up, in addition to money coming from Washington on green energy, right? So there's all these forces that are going to work in behind all this. Here we are.
Can I ask a completely different question?
Yeah.
On number 19, you have the certificate of zoning compliance and you have the what they all have to turn in to be able to get that. Do we need to add something about the safety services since you put in here the property owner shall provide sufficient evidence that the property can be adequately served by the appropriate safety services? Is that something we need to add to that list, or does that fall under any other information?
Where are you just reading what that statement is?
13 safety services.
Okay.
You're basically saying that they have to have a letter from the fire department or whatever,
Mhm.
saying that emergency response personnel and vehicles can safely reach the service. That almost is like when you apply for a permit now, you have this
Mhm.
list of what you have to, which is basically what I'm getting, that your list here to be under 19. Do we need to add that safety services compliance letter requirement list?
Let's see if it
Since
covers.
it's in the resolution that you're requiring it. That way, it kind of, because when I give someone a permit packet, it's right up front, this is what I need.
Well, we could. I mean, the other thing we've talked about before is that some of these things, and I think I know it's made somewhere because I remember working on that section where it says it must follow the other resolutions in effect. And so I know, like even driveways, if there's they have to have a certain turnaround at the end if they're so many feet long, so that the fire trucks can get in there. So I don't know I can't cite off the top of my head where that is, but that there are statements in here as far as access to buildings.
Okay,
Basically,
but I don't think we need that with a letter. Or
I mean,
I didn't know if that was something, if we're gonna make them have that letter, if it says in the resolution that they have to have that letter, if it's something that would go on that list, which is basically what I would put on, because we would have to design some kind of new permit form for that. That was something you'd want to add in.
we can. I mean, I don't know exactly how that fits. Have you done any kind of any zoning or permits for someone who's just building a house and has a long driveway, as far as whether they have a turnaround and because I know it's in the resolutions that it defines it by number of feet and whether there's a turnaround or all that. So, well, I can find that section. I don't know where I have to read these things for a while.
I thought that was gonna be required. It's not.
I mean, it's no problem. What I may do when I find that section, I'll just cite that section, the article and section, because it'll spell it in more detail than what we want to put in here.
Yes.
We have language.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
I've read it.
Whether it's a T turnaround
Yeah.
or whether it's a certain radius.
Right here.
And
Uh-huh.
Which article is that?
38,
Okay, yeah.
1, H. Number, let's see, number, and follow 6. All the numbers run together for me. So
Okay.
there's 38, 1. Go. 6, and
You see
another
that? You see
number.
what that's thinking about. That's about swimming pools, so it's
I
not
know,
that.
but go on, but here's the driveways right
It's,
here.
Yeah.
number 3.
Dead end private driveways that exceed 500 feet in length. I knew it had exactly the feet too.
Mhm.
Shall include a turnaround with a recommended minimum radius of 45 feet or a T arrangement with 40 feet on each side of the T. So that's where that is.
The only difference is, like I said, we've never made them provide us with something from the fire department or EMS saying, this is okay with us, we sign off on this.
Yeah.
That was why I asked.
Okay, well, we can do it.
That's where this originally came from. We had a meeting with the fire department. This is what they requested. That was years ago.
Oh.
That'll be easy to add.
Good thoughts and comments. Stuck.
But stuck. I feel like since this has had a number of iterations since we started it, and it's like you said, we're learning.
Yeah, right.
So I think somewhere I've got the original copy, the original one, and it's got markings all over it. And then this last one has, not as many, but, and then this one, we're good. We're getting there.
The first one said ban solar farms. And then we.
Yeah. We've come a long way.
And just so you all know, that none of us on this board, although it has been the case before, where one of us was a lawyer, none of that, we don't have him any longer. But this wording, a lot of this wording, I started out with the Ohio Township Association provided a template for us to use and then modify for our use. And it was extremely helpful. And it was written by lawyers, sure.
Mhm. It was, yeah. So I think I need to call the Township Association before we can do much. Are there any other questions? And then what I was thinking about proposing here is that we've got, our next meeting is our organizational meeting. January 2nd. It is a Tuesday. And normally we use that for discussions with the BZA, but we might be able to have a quick business meeting. And if we can answer some of those questions, we might be able to pass them. If not, then we have to determine when our next meeting be.
That's just 2 weeks from now. So, I mean, you take great notes. So if you have to-do list from that, I'm willing to dig into that to see if I could at least propose some additional wording, whatever one says. I think we fixed a couple of them right here.
There's not much on here. But
That's what I thought. We had the safety services and that added addition to number 10.
Kurt, if you're gonna call the OTA, do you want to ask them about the RUMA and how one would go about doing that, as far as whether it's township, state, county roads? I don't know anything about the law, but if you try to go to a company and say, well, you ruined our road, isn't the burden of proof on us to prove that their trucks are what ruined our road? You know what I mean? Like, how does one go about something like that? Because if they're the ones that suggested it, then they've got to have an answer.
Okay, I'll ask that.
So I don't know if it's too ambitious. I don't think so. And I'll be one mainly making sure this gets another version.
Yeah.
I propose that I bring another version of this next meeting. Organizational meeting. in case we can get things.
Insane amount of changes that
No,
you're doing tonight.
Nobody's gonna argue with that.
nobody's gonna argue with me doing some more work. I know the holidays.
The only thing I had on it was,
Merry Christmas.
would this permit cost the same as any other permit? I mean, to me, I feel like Shauna's gonna have a whole bunch more to do on a permit for a proposed solar farm versus can we change our permitting cost to something that,
Oh, yeah.
so I don't know if that's something we can decide as a group, but I think there definitely needs to be discussion
I,
on.
I, that was actually, I have that on the agenda for 24 is to kind of do a review of all our permits. Some of them are really under low. Yeah. I mean, the time you put into it, the township's losing money.
That's what I thought when I looked through what
Yeah.
the work to do this, it'd be a very expensive.
Well, I think on something like this, there should be an administrative bonus that gets added in based on, you know. Right.
Oh, we already did that.
Just saying. We do not.
Worse. Not on the agenda.
Yeah, so, okay, I guess. Any other old business, new business? Okay, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Meeting is adjourned.
Great work, team.
Yeah.
Now,